Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Wednesday, November 18th meeting of the Triangle J Council and Government Board of Delegates. This meeting is held a week early so that we all can observe Thanksgiving with our immediate family. We know this Thanksgiving is not going to be the same as in prior years, but hopefully we can share memories with our family virtually or in some manner to continue our traditions. As we start this meeting, I want to remind everyone that we have to have a voice vote on any of the items on the consent agenda, and or if it's removed from the consent agenda. And so there will be a roll call of the delegates from the local governments that they belong to. So with starting the meeting, Renee will do a roll call and we will determine if there is a quorum. And in your meeting package, you should have also an up-to-date list of the delegates that are part of our delegation.
Are you ready for me to go?
Hey, Renee, it's Lee. I think he's ready.
Yes, I am ready. I just got to go lock a door.
All right. I am sending an updated link to someone. So let me hit send. Okay. All right. Wilma Laney.
Present. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Joe Danley. Bob Smith. Brett Gant.
Present.
Audra Killingsworth. Mark Wilson.
Present and accounted for.
Mark Jackson. Jerry Medlin.
Hi, it's Cassandra in his place.
Hi, Cassandra. Thank you.
How are you, Renee?
Tommy Bill. Tommy?
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Donald Andrews. Randy Haven O'Donnell.
Present.
Jimmy Chalfinch. Christopher Nance. Jennifer Robinson.
Present.
Lori Bush. Michael Parker. Jim Crawford. Diana Hells. Jason Thompson. Deidreana Freeman. Javiera Caballero. James Hill. Brenda Howerton. Larry Smith. Jason Wunsch. Ken Marshburn.
I'm here if you can hear me.
We can, thank you. Tim Knupp. Kathleen Ferguson.
I'm here.
Thank you. Sean McGrath.
Present.
Thank you. Aaron Wolf. Butch Lauder.
Here.
Thank you, Butch. Trinity Henderson. James Roberson, Jessica Day, Amy Dalrymple, Jay Langston, Russell Creech, Satish Garamella, Steve Rao.
Here. Present.
Thank you. Sally Green. Sally Green. Penny Rich. Jeff Holt. Greg Baker. Kevin Drum. Jane Hogeman. Pamela Baldwin. Michael Fiacco. And sorry if I'm butchering people's names. Don Raines.
Present.
Corey Branch. Lonnie English. Nikki Bradshaw. Ronnie Curran. Michelle Medley. Rebecca Salmon. Wyoff.
Present.
Sorry about that. Chet Mann. Old habits. Byron McAllister.
Present.
Cheryl Oliver. Bill Haggis. Andy Moore. John Dunn. Carol Haney. Bill Pate. Sig Hutchison.
Present.
Thank you. Greg Ford. Chad Sari.
Present.
Vivian Jones. John Lutz. John Boyette. David McGowan.
Present.
Jim Uzzle. Larry Laux. And Glenn York. Did anyone come in after I called your name?
Bob Smith, manager.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we do have a quorum. And we do have several people that responded that they would be here that haven't joined yet. So we may have additionals. Chairman Raines. Did we lose you?
I'm here. I just got to put myself off mute. Thank you all. As people join, we'll hopefully they'll announce themselves, and when we do the roll call, we'll certainly add them to the list of attendees. Everyone's had a chance to review the agenda, and I will ask for consent on the agenda. And so we'll move forward on the agenda. And the first item on the agenda is recognition of outgoing Triangle J delegates. And I want to thank all our delegates for their service, loyalty, and dedication to your local government and our region. And we will miss every one of you. And the first one is Amy Drywinkle from Lee County. And I've served with Amy for the last 4 years, and she's just been a great pleasure. She has a tremendous amount of contributions that she's given to Triangle J. And I know she's done the same to Lee County. And I'm going to call on Rebecca to give further comments. Because Rebecca has served in Sanford and has worked with Amy in many roles.
Thank you, Don. Amy, which I'm all of you have had the pleasure of working with Amy know this about her, but she is a really phenomenal leader, and she really values teamwork and collaboration. And she's helped lead our community through a lot of hard times, through out of our recession and into a period of really unprecedented growth that we've had, adding over 1,000 really great jobs and about $700 million to our tax base. It has been a real pleasure to serve with her, to get to be a part of the teams that she's a part of, because she values that teamwork so highly. And I know that commitment to collaboration has really made her work at Triangle J so important to her and the other regional groups that she's been a part of, because she really knows that our communities are stronger when we work together. We are all, as a region, in this together, and that's always been something that has been so strong in Amy's core philosophies for leadership. But mostly I've been impressed with how much she loves Lee County and how much she loves our people, and her dedication to everything that she has done to make our community such a phenomenal place to live, to learn, to start a business, to build a career, to farm, and to raise our next generation of people. And I've enjoyed working with her so much, and I just commend her for everything that she's done for our community and for the region. And I know we'll miss serving with her here. So our big thank yous to Amy.
Thank you. And has Amy joined us? Well, we'll be sending a certificate to Amy, and Rebecca, if you would give her our regards, and I'll try to reach out to her by phone as well.
Oh, well, thank you.
Next is Kevin Dobson from Lee County, the alternate. And I do have some updated news on Kevin. Renee had sent me that he is in the hospital, ICU, and he has COVID, and we need to put him in our prayers, and hopefully he can make a speedy recovery. But Rebecca, do you have anything else to add?
No, I haven't worked with Kevin as closely as I've worked with Amy, but I do know that he's played a really key role in a lot of those very same projects, and been really supportive of all these activities, from our STEAM school to their community college, and to our economic development. And he'll be missed as well for his service on a board in Lee County.
Well,
please keep him in your prayers, because this is very serious.
We'll keep praying for Kevin. Greg Ford from Wake County and sick. Do you have anything to add on Greg? He's been the
yes.
alternate.
Greg is moving to California to be with his husband and kids. So he did not run for re-election, and other than that, I don't have much of an update.
Okay. Well, we appreciate the service of Greg. James Hill from Durham County. And James has been active with the COG, and we will miss him as well. Is there a delegate from Durham County or Durham that might want to add any comments? Okay. We thank James for his service. Penny Rich from Orange County. I've served with Penny for many years, and she's given us a lot of valuable contributions to Triangle J. And I know Penny is outspoken, and we learned a lot from Penny's involvement. And Catherine or anyone else, Kathleen or anyone else from Orange County?
Yes, I'd like to, and I'm sure Sally does too. But I have to express my appreciation for Penny. She is just passionate for Orange County and has been, I mean, I've learned from her every board that I've served with her. She has long advocated for, the economic development, social justice, for the least of these, the vulnerable folks in our communities. And it's been a real pleasure to serve with her, and she will be missed.
Absolutely. Sally, do you want to give your thoughts?
I don't believe Sally's on the meeting,
Okay.
but
Thank
I do
you.
see Randy.
Randy?
Yeah, I've known Penny since she was a Chapel Hill Town Council member, and as she was on the County Commissioners and served as chair. I appreciate that Kathleen said that Kathleen has said that she's a social justice champion. She is. I also want to just accentuate that this past year, Penny has really helped us navigate the treacherous waters of COVID in the county, and her leadership through this time has been critical, and she's done a great job of it. And I'm glad to know that she has served on TJ Cog. I wasn't aware of it until this time. So I'm thanking you for thanking her, and I know that she'll be missed as a delegate.
Thank you. And David Sibberling from town of Cameron, and anyone from Cameron or Moore County would like to add any comments?
Mr. Chair, this is Lee. I don't think we have anybody from Moore County, but if I may, I'd like to just say a quick word about Councilmember Seiberling.
Yes.
Thank you. Cameron is a wonderful place, and the board members there are really, all the elected officials on our board work really hard. But in Cameron, they have no town manager. They have very limited staff. They're actually a commission style local government still. So David, in addition to being an elected official, he was the department head for one of the functions at the town. And he just was really engaged and always called on Triangle J whenever he had a question. We worked with him very closely on a number of different things, and he was just always so positive. In fact, I remember actually one of the meetings we had, he hosted us at his house, and we just sat there and ate lunch and talked about town business. So he was just a he's just a really nice gentleman, and we're gonna miss him on the COG board very greatly. So thank you.
Thank you. Lee, if you'll take over for just a second, I'll be right back. I've got a door call.
All right. If it's okay, I may pass the torch to Miss Ferguson, because I believe that would, since you're the next in line, ma'am.
You'll have forgive me because I also was actually dealing with a dog. So.
All right. Well, we can work on it together. How about that?
That sounds good. Can you please repeat? Sid, I apologize. I am now focused here. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. We were just finishing up the recognitions of the outgoing board members, and I believe that completes that item. So if you'd like, you can move on to the next item, which is the recap of the regional summit and recognition of the speakers, ma'am.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you, Lee.
Okay. You're good to go, Mr. Chair?
I am good.
Okay. We have moved on to the next item, which is the regional summit.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think I will take over unless, am I waiting?
You're letting it go forward.
Okay, sorry. I know everyone doesn't want me to get started. Okay, so good evening, everyone. I'm really excited to talk to you tonight. So it's not just me. I've also brought some of the regional summit speakers with me. They're on the call tonight. So I'm very excited to get the chance to share their expertise with all of you this evening, for those of you who didn't join the summit over the past couple, the month of September and October. I'm going to quickly, though, before I get the chance to recognize them, give you a recap of this year's regional summit, which was obviously a little bit different than in past years. For some of you, you may not even know the impetus, like how the regional summit started. So I am going to provide a little bit of context about that as well, and the goals and how we did, what we achieved during this year's event. So I'm going to get started, and we will also have time for a discussion at the end. So if you have any questions or thoughts about the regional summit, we will have some time towards the end of this agenda item. So as I mentioned, the regional summit, the beginning of it actually came from this board. 4 years ago, 2016, your governing body decided that you wanted us to begin having a regional summit. So this is our 4th year doing it. And there are some goals that have changed over the years, but a lot of them are the same. And so I'm going to talk through the goals and why those are important for this event, for those of you who may not know the beginnings of the regional summit. So for the 2020 regional summit, this is what our list was. First, we were building off of a systems thinking foundation. So for those of you who were able to join us in Pittsburgh last year, we had a workshop, a morning-long workshop on the concept of systems thinking. And this basically, the idea behind systems thinking is that the biggest challenges that we have in our region are systemic, right? Which is a very simple concept in theory, but it means that they're really hard to address because we have to take a really far step back to see what the real root causes of a lot of our biggest challenges are. So we had all of our attendees at our 2019 summit learn how to use a systems thinking lens, and we really wanted to make sure that this year's summit topic was focused on a topic that is systemic. So it was really important that we build off of that. Our second goal, this was specific to just this year, thankfully, was to adapt to COVID-19. And so that's something that we've all had to do, but obviously our summit was different this year. It was in a virtual format. I know many of you were able to be there. If you weren't, it was definitely different. We had it across 5 Thursday mornings instead of one day. We had one session every week to keep folks from Zoom fatigue, like I know we're all feeling. And so we adapted as we needed to. The third one, and this is one that has been for all 4 years, is enabling region-wide collaboration and peer learning, which is something that I think is important to us across everything that we do, but especially at the regional summit. It's why this board asked for it back 4 years ago. More opportunity for our region alone to get together and talk about the challenges that only our region collectively are facing that are unique to our region. And then similarly, the next goal, highlighting us as a key regional partner. This is a little bit more of a selfish one, I guess, for our governing body and our staff. But it is important to make sure that our local government partners and communities know that TJCOG is available to lead on topics that are of emerging interest, that are key issues. And so the summit does provide a time for that, to be that convener, to showcase what we're doing, which has happened every year. And just be a partner for all of our local governments in the work that they're doing every day. The 5th goal, address a critical and relevant topic. This has been something we do every year as well. If you remember back to 2016, that summit was the urban-rural divide, which was the big topic at that time. And so that is how we chose this year's topic, equity in local government. It's something that is being discussed at a national level, but it's also important for us to understand how it impacts us at a more local and regional scale, what our region specifically needs to deal with in relation to equity. And then finally, the final goal for this year was to provide a safe space. And I wanted to note this one because I think it's a good example, especially with a topic like equity, where it can be really easy for us to jump into emerging issues and assume that everyone at the table knows what we're talking about, and we move forward really quickly. And then with topics like equity, which can be kind of sensitive, folks don't want to ask or admit that they may not know the basics, right? So it was really important for us in this year's summit to make sure that we started at the beginning. And for those of you who joined us for the first session, Sharon Williams, who's also on the call, led us through a Equity 101, what it is, why it matters, how it's related to local government, so that folks didn't have to feel like they were missing some piece of the conversation and be afraid to ask about it. So that was really important for us in this session. So I quickly, to that point, want to just give a couple, just two, because I'm not a data expert. And if anyone on the call is, they may call me out for misconstruing this information, but two things about our specific regional data as to why it matters for us to talk about it, right? So this has been an emerging topic, but why was it important for our region to talk about equity? First, you'll see on your screen, so there's 3 pie charts, and this is 1990 is not a projection, but 2050 is a projection of the makeup of our communities. So we are projected by 2050 to have our white population, which is the dark blue, be actually less than 50%. So the majority of our residents will be a race other than white. So what's important about that, if there are certain populations that are disproportionately impacted, they have inequitable outcomes, that could apply to a majority of our residents. So it's really important that things benefit everyone because we are growing more and more diverse. And then to that point, so, you know, we talk a lot about our economy growing, quality of life, low cost of living. All of those things are great, but it's also important to look at how that looks on a racial level. So you'll see there's 2 different pieces to this information. The top is hourly wages, and that's racially disaggregated, which I learned in one of our recent summit sessions, is a term where you just take that information and you break it down by race. So as you'll see in that graph, residents who are Latinx or Black or mixed race make lower average wages, hourly wages, than those who are Asian, Pacific Islander, or white in our region. So that tells us those populations make less money. And then the bottom part of this shows us that those who make less money in our region have had a lower increase, a smaller increase over time in their wage. So their wages are much lower growing over time. This is my best attempt at explaining data. So you'll see this is broken down by MSA, but because that's the way that it shows it, but you'll see those who are at the bottom 20% have seen very, very small increases in their wages compared to those who are at the top percentile. Pretty stark differences. You can see in the Durham MSA, which is even more stark than Raleigh, the bottom 20% over 27 years saw a $1,600 increase compared to those of the top percent who actually saw a $110,000 increase. So this information tells us certain races make more money, and those who make less money are not keeping up with the increase in cost of living. So those are just two key things why our region, these are specific to our region, should care about equity. So all that data tells us, and this is the question that we really look to answer in the regional summit, if we want to make sure that no one is disproportionately impacted, how can our local governments intentionally design and promote policies, practices, and procedures that ensure equitable outcomes? So that was the goal of the summit, to answer that question through a series of workshops. And these were the different sessions, and I'm not going to go into each of them because I know a lot of you attended them and you'll have to hear me talk about things that I don't know well enough. But what I have next to each of the sessions is basically an answer to that first question. So the question was, how can local government intentionally design policies, procedures, and practices that are equitable? And next to each of these is an answer to that. So our first session, which was with Sharon Williams from the city of Durham, government can understand how government work impacts equitable outcomes. So as I said, we talked about what it is, why it matters, how local government is related to it. Our second session, which was with presenters from PolicyLink, a national research organization, the answer to the question is government can intentionally measure and target growth, development, and the related supports. The third session was on health equity. Government can develop people-centric, robust, collaborative, and equitable health approaches. And this is at the local and state level. Equitable community engagement. government can ensure policies and practices do not disproportionately benefit or harm some by asking the community what they need rather than assuming. And then policing equity, government can measure and assess public safety resources to ensure communities are supported correctly. So those were our 5 topics, and I'm now going to take a moment. So we had speakers from all across the country as well as local. The value of virtual is you can pull in folks from anywhere and they can just join you in your living room. But the sessions were really made awesome by all of our local talent. And so you'll see on the screen, this is the list, the comprehensive list of folks from our region. Not all of them were able to join us tonight, but we do have, I believe we have 3, Monica, Bobby, and Sharon. And Bobby is Robert Brown. So I want to give a moment for each of them to take some time and just share a little bit about the work that they presented on and why it's important for our region to know about it. And so I'm going to have you each mute in order of when your order of your session. So Sharon, if you want to unmute and just say a little bit about yourself and the work you presented on.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. I am Sharon Williams. I'm City of Durham, and we've been on the same equity journey that many jurisdictions have for about 3 years now. We started in 2017. We are members of the Government Alliance on Race, and Equity, as are many jurisdictions now in North Carolina. We're one of the fastest growing regions for GARE. What I loved about what Elena said was that we started with the basics. And so you have to create a safe space first for people to talk about equity. There's this assumption that everyone knows what you mean by equity, and that's not the case. And so my session, which was the first one, I was deeply honored to have the opportunity to present because it was all about the basics and it was all about normalizing conversations about race, which simply means get us all on the same page. So I was honored to be a part of your session. The conference I thought was great. It was great in terms of how it was executed in a COVID environment. And Elena, you were wonderful to work with.
Thanks, Sharon. And I don't think Deidreana Freeman, Councilmember Freeman, was able to be here, but she has only amazing words to say about Sharon. She also provided remarks for her in the session. So yes, I don't think she's on. Okay. All right, next, Monica. Would you like to?
Oh, great. I was all the way at the bottom, so I wasn't expecting to go next. Hi, everyone. I'm Monica Krosky-Chapato with the City of Durham. I have the pleasure of presenting alongside Dr. Kevin Strom from RTI. Dr. Strom is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to policing. I was on the panel because back in August, our former city manager, Tom Bonfield, came to me and said that policing and the future of policing was changing, but he didn't want us to look at it from an emotional-based, politically charged way. And we've seen a lot of that this summer. And he wanted it from a data-based way. And that's my gig. I'm an applied researcher, is how I would describe myself. So came up with a project plan that really is looking at the future of policing in a 4-phased approach. Reached out to RTI, gathered some of my peers from across the Carolinas, and convinced them to join us on this journey. So we have organizations large and small, from as large as Raleigh to as small as Burlington, in a cohort. We call ourselves the Carolina Cohort of Cities. And we are working with RTI to look at our police data to better understand the nature and the scope of law enforcement within our organization. Secondly, we're exploring alternative responses. You hear a lot about cahoots and alternative responses for folks with mental health issues, but we want to make sure we're looking at the full scope of practice and the literature going all the way back to the 70s. So we are looking at almost 13 alternative responses. We will then implement pilots in our various cities based on whatever goals our cities have. And then we will have an evaluation, third-party evaluation. As of Monday night, we received word that we secured funding to the tune of almost $900 million from a philanthropic organization. So in addition to having RTI experts at the table, we will now have the University of Chicago Health Lab, who are just national experts on this work. So we're incredibly excited about it. We want to make sure that we're making smart decisions about what the future of policing should look like in our communities, and not just making ceremonial announcements or knee-jerk reactions, but we're being very intentional about how we shape the future of law enforcement. So that's what we presented on. It's a project that's evolving. Everyone's excited, particularly with this announcement of the grant funding that we'll be making in any day now. So you guys got some hot off the presses news on that. But that's what we presented on.
Thanks, Monica. And I will say to that project, I'm sure we'll want to have you and Kevin back sometime to give us updates down the road when more has come from it.
I would be remiss if I did not mention that TJ-COG is serving as a partner on that project, because so many of the participating cities, Cary, Raleigh, I'm forgetting, so many of us are in Wake County. So we definitely wanted TJ-COG at the table. So excited about the project.
Okay. And last but not least, Dr. Brown.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Bobby Brown, chair of the Criminal Justice Department at North Carolina Central University, and I had the pleasure of actually being the moderator for the panel. So I can't say that I was a presenter, but I had the great opportunity to ask questions of all the presenters. In addition to Kevin and Monica, we had a panelist from the University of Texas at Austin, Gordon Abner, and I believe it was a great presentation that highlighted many of the cutting edge issues that we're seeing happening in policing. I think that it was a robust discussion about some things that a lot of people are not talking about because they are, I will say, distracted by this broad issue of defunding the police and how do we make smarter decisions. I'm really excited about the work that was presented and everyone is doing. I think it's going to continue to keep this part of North Carolina on the front lines of what we need to see when it comes to data-driven decisions about criminal justice, not just policing. So I was just very pleased to be a part of this as a moderator.
Thanks, Bobby. I switched from Bobby to Doctor. Went very informal to very formal.
No worries.
So is there anyone else that I'm missing who has joined, who is a presenter? I believe those are the only three that were able to join tonight. Great. Well, let's just take a moment and recognize the other folks that were not able to be here. They all were fabulous. Several folks from Chatham County, as well as Kevin and then Brianne, who's at the state level. So thank you all. All right. So I'm just going to quickly, we are going to have some time for the board to discuss. I'm going to quickly talk about our plans moving forward, how we hope to kind of keep this conversation going based on feedback that we've heard from attendees. I'm not going to go through this entire graphic, but as you can see, we got a lot of feedback from attendees. All great feedback. Feedback is always good. I'm going to just talk about the dislikes because that leads us to our action items. But one thing I will also note is how much we heard back that the virtual format made it easier to attend. And I note that not to say that we're never going to have another in-person summit, but I think it is an important consideration from an equity standpoint to consider that sometimes a day-long event at one corner of our region makes it harder for certain staff or communities to be able to join us for that. So that's something that we are going to be just taking into consideration, whether that means offering additional things on top of the summit, making the summit more a mix of virtual and in person, but it's very clear that it made it easier for folks to be able to participate in as many of the sessions as they wanted, and that's really important. The few items of the dislikes, that's maybe not the best word, that folks mentioned was really mostly just more opportunity for engaging with one another. So ways to ask more questions, which is difficult in virtual format anyways. We're all sick of the chat box. Finding more opportunities to talk about engagement, which is community engagement, was something that came up in every one of the sessions. I think staff are, in the world of COVID and in the world of virtual formats, it's really hard to engage residents and make sure that underrepresented residents are engaged properly. So there was a lot of requests for further discussion around that in the region. And then we did also, just because we wanted to see if the sessions help folks understand what equity was, we measured before and after their levels of understanding. And so you'll see in the right corner, the number that felt they had a basic understanding increased 77% to 93%, much even higher increase between how many of those folks felt strongly about that. So it definitely did help folks feel more confident in their understanding of the topic. So keeping the focus internally, there's a couple of things that we're doing. Some of these are specific to, most of these were kind of happening regardless of the regional summit. They were in tandem, I would say. We have defined our core values to incorporate a DEI lens, which will allow our staff to be able to measure the work they're doing and assess it from that perspective. We also joined the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, which Sharon mentioned, and our region does have a big number of communities that are engaged in that. So that provides tools and peer learning. In this coming early winter, we are going to be working with True Pettigrew, who some of you may know. He works with some of our local police departments. He started specifically with Cary's police department for courageous conversations on race relation. This will be internal for our staff. And then we also have started a staff book club, and the first book is Color of Law. So we've got a lot of planners who are very interested in that history. And then externally, this is where we're starting, and we would love more feedback from you all during our discussion of what other ways we can keep this conversation going. But for now, we're starting with obviously resource gathering, something that we do well, but we are also having a set of facilitated discussion. So that was big feedback we got from attendees, space to just talk with one another, talk about the ways they're trying to implement equitable solutions. And so we're going to be doing 3 coffee and collaboration sessions in the virtual sandbox, which is just another Zoom meeting. It's a fun way to say a Zoom meeting. So we will have 3 of those throughout the next couple of months as just a starting place for staff from any community that is trying to do this work to just talk with one another and learn from one another. So that's all I have. I have some questions that we would love to hear from all of you about next steps and feedback, and also just about how you are thinking about equity. So I will start with the first question, and feel free to jump in. So the first question is, how is equity being discussed in your local government? And if you attended the summit, we would love to hear how you've been able to utilize the racial equity lens that Sharon talked about during our first session. If you have, I know it's only been a month or 2. Go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, I can get the ball rolling. In Carborough, we've been working on this for a couple of years, and of course, most recently, it's really propelled a greater effort going forward. The summit was great. It was absolutely fabulous. I had staff attend. Our GARE lead director attended with me, Anita Jones McNair. And so we were able to walk away with a real good sense of the region moving in the same direction, which is great. Some of the places where the equity tools have been used is in looking at the membership of our advisory boards, and that actually started about 3 years ago, looking at economic development and uplifting and enhancing Black and Brown BIPOC folks in the community, their business, and expanding entrepreneurship. We have been working for the last 2 years on community safety and law enforcement, which has been greatly informed by the events of the killing of George Floyd and everything that followed afterwards. So that went into high gear. And we're also working on reparations. So that's the encapsulation. And I look forward to not only myself, but Anita Jones McNair having further collaboration with Monica and Professor Brown. So thank you, and thank you for continuing this conversation within the delegates.
And Elena, I would just add that this is the first of many sessions that we will have on equity, and I have started reading The Color of Law, and we'll pass it on to our local board members. Elaine, I know there is some comments in chat if you or Lee want to follow up on that.
Yeah, it looks like one question was how much is the grant that Durham is receiving? And Lee answered it's 900,000. And Monica also added that RTI will be the direct recipient. The funds will support the technical assistance and third-party evaluation. Is there anything else you want to add on that, Monica, in case folks have any questions?
Sorry, I spent time on Zoom, so I'm getting oriented to WebEx. So it's open to jurisdictions. The more, the merrier. We feel as though this is a journey that the more communities in North Carolina that take this journey, the better. If we come up against some state laws that we need to advocate for being changed, there's strength in numbers. The more brain power around the table, the better. And the great thing about the grant is that the resources are completely free to cities. So we wanted cities of every size, every resource level, from the Charlottes to the Raleighs to the Burlington, to be able to benefit from first-class experts. And these are really experts that are at the table. So the resources are absolutely free. So it's the first of its kind of approach in the country, and we really want to put North Carolina on the map. But more importantly, we want to go about tackling this complex, important issue in a thoughtful way. So it's the more the merrier. So.
Monica. And I'm happy to connect. I know I've already connected folks with Monica before, but if any other communities are interested, feel free to let me know and I'll make sure to get you connected with her. All right, I have a few more questions. Feel free to answer or give your thoughts. How do you think our region should consider equity as we plan for reopening and recovery? I know it's hard to have conversation over WebEx. It's a different way of doing things. I have one more question and I'll keep going. Feel free to also put things in the chat as well if you have no interest in unmuting. And then this one is probably most important, honestly. So how should we continue to support your communities as you learn about and implement this work? You can answer now, but we'd also be curious anytime to hear the answers. So does anyone have any thoughts?
Well, I would just add that as we look at zoning and affordable housing and other areas, not just personnel, that this be part of our thought pattern and way we want to involve the whole community in our governing.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other thoughts? So that is all I have. My final remark will just simply be to encourage your staff to attend our first coffee and collaboration. It's going to be on equitable community engagement specifically. So that was what was requested by the majority of folks. So December 17th for coffee. Coffee is not required. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena, and all the speakers that were part of the program, and Monica for sharing that great news that I think all of us will be wanting to be a partner with. So thank you very much. Everyone has looked at the consent agenda, and there are several items on the consent agenda. And
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, this is Lee. Yeah, sorry, Renee. Yeah, we were
doing the same thing.
Yeah, we've actually got one more presentation.
Yes.
Yep.
I was following the slides instead of my outline. I apologize.
No worries, sir.
Okay. This is the presentation of Triangle J's Regional Development Strategy, Strength in Numbers, a Regional Plan for Economic Resilience and Prosperity. Lindsay, you've been doing some great presentations. Lindsay Winson from our team.
Thank you, Mayor Rains. And thank you to the board for having me here tonight. Elena, you can see the screen, right? Just making sure. Yes, thank you to the board for having me here tonight. As Mayor Rains said, I will be presenting on our regional economic development strategy, which is titled Strength in Numbers, a Regional Plan for Economic Resilience and Prosperity. And it's funny because recently Monica just said strength in numbers, and I had changed the title to this because I believe that it is more inspirational and fitting to our region. And I agree that having more people at the table, it makes a stronger regional economy and helps us grow equitably. So thank you, Monica, for saying that exact term. But let's see. Okay. So as most of you may recall, back in August, I was here to present about the document itself and the process taken to complete it. So tonight I'm here to present a status update and ask for approval of the actual plan itself. A few weeks back, Renee had emailed the Board of Delegates a draft executive summary for the plan, as well as an outline of each of the 5 goals. And in those outlines, it includes the goals, the strategies, the action plans, key partners, and performance measures. So for those of you who were able to look that over, I know it's quite overwhelming, but there will be time at the end of my presentation for this board to provide any comment, recommendations. And of course, prior to submittal, I would incorporate any of those edits into the document. It is due to Economic Development Administration, EDA, December 1, so coming up here in 2 short weeks. And as a reminder, I did create the document digitally on ARC Story Map. That's why I was unable to send an actual hard copy of the draft. So I sent the most, arguably the most important components of it. And so again, looking for feedback at the end of tonight's presentation, as well as anytime before Wednesday, November 25th, which would be that Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I could take any feedback. So tonight, again, I'll just high-level overview of what the Regional Economic Development Strategy is and its process, the engagement process that I undertook, the goals, performance measures, and then next steps and implementation. So what is the document? As a partner to EDA, we are designated as the region's economic development district. So we are required to provide this document every 5 years with interim year progress reports. And so the main goal of the document is to build a regional capacity, guide economic prosperity and resiliency, and to create partnerships throughout the region, private and public partnerships, and really invest in regional collaboration. And again, since we are the designated economic development district, we are to be in compliant with, we're to create this document and be in compliance with EDA's federal guidelines. And with that designation of the EDD, we are able to provide project development and technical assistance with any priority areas or projects outlined in the document. And then, of course, with any application, it's if you're working on an application that aligns with the priorities in the regional planning strategy, it strengthens those applications, particularly ones for EDA. They actually require SEDS consistency letters and support that it aligns with this actual document. So the four main components are of the four main components of the document are a summary background where it just provides the current economic conditions of the region, and then a SOAR analysis, which is strengths, opportunity, aspirations, and results. And throughout the engagement process, that's the approach I took to collect input and then use that input to create action plans. And then lastly, evaluation framework. So how can we measure what how our work is meaningful and what trends are working in the region and are not working. And then the other two main components that EDA requires is discussion on economic resiliency in the region and opportunity zones and how they can be leveraged. This is very blurry and up close, but this is just a snapshot of one of the county profiles. Each county has a profile in there, just basic demographic information, and as you can see, touches on things like strongest industry, household data, per capita income. There's a lot more to it. This is a snapshot. And then the engagement process that I took started back in, I've been working on the plan probably since February or March. So unfortunately, every single engagement process that took place was virtually. So it was a lot more difficult than I imagined and looked a lot different. But I took the approach of going where the people are and piggybacking off of meetings throughout the region that are already taking place, so that I could collect input in those spaces throughout the region. And staff, local government staff and elected officials were in attendance at many of those different meetings. And then also created an economic engagement ambassador program. I had a couple staff from communities host like their own SOAR analysis input session. So I was able to reach a broader audience beyond my actual network or TJ Cog's network of contacts. And then I also had a 15-person steering committee with representation from all 7 counties and different professionals and practitioners in the economic development, community development world. And they helped sort of guide and refine the final goals and action plans. And then lastly, a public input survey got close to 200 responses. Originally opened it up in March, but didn't get much response given COVID, just the spread of COVID just starting. So opened it back up late summer. But yeah, that input was definitely incorporated into the document. And then here, this visual shows the 5 goals. They're actually, when they're written out, they're longer, but these are a summary of each of the goals. And I just wanted to point out that in the middle is a central theme that all of the goals are centered around, which is fostering economic inclusion. When I was creating the action plans from input, when I was creating the action plans and looking through input, I just realized that most of the action plans had some sort of equity lens to it. So I didn't feel like I needed to note that within each action plan. It's just sort of this written theme that is just automatically a component of each of the goals in the action plans. So goal 1 is business retention, expansion, and innovation. And then 2 would be robust infrastructure. 3, workforce development. 4, connected and vibrant places. And lastly, economic resiliency. And so again, this just goes over how these were created. So they were created from thoughts and recommendations and input from stakeholders, and unfortunately minimal public input at this point. Relevant to the Triangle J region, they're measurable and replicable, meaning that they can be measured over time. And then each of the goals, each of the action plans have an estimated timeline underneath it. So, and it's not necessarily meaning that the actual action plan will be completed and checked off our list. More planning efforts might start taking place in that space, or maybe it'll be completed. But the timeline is short, 1 to 3 years, medium 3 to 5 years, and long 5+ years. And so these were the goal sheets that Renee had sent out a few weeks back. And you can see the dash marks underneath represent that green, yellow, and red. And then the top is the goal, and then the strategies, and underneath is the action plans. So again, goal 1, business retention, expansion, and innovation, has 3 strategies: maintain a competitive edge, leverage assets and marketplace, and create an entrepreneurial spirit. Goal 2, design and maintain a robust infrastructure. So strategy 1 is focused on regionalism and how can we think regionally when feasible. And then the other 4 strategies are focused on infrastructure related focus areas. So transportation, housing, water, wastewater, and digital infrastructure. And then goal 3, investing in workforce development. Strategy 1 is education and training, and how are those aligning with the current labor market, and how can we have them align with the labor market. Focus on youth and accessibility. So how can we ensure that everyone is having access, equitable opportunities to have access to workforce development and entering the workforce in general. Goal 4 is the vibrant and connected places, with a strategy focused on sustainable land development patterns. So this kind of just correlates with Mayor Rain's comment earlier about zoning and planning for equitably in our region. So that's certainly an intent of that strategy. Strategy 2, increase connectivity, and 3, support healthy neighborhoods. And then the final goal is related to economic resiliency. And I just wanted to point out that a lot of the other action plans within each of the other goals do have a resiliency component tied to it. But I did think that it was important to call out economic resiliency as its goal, especially given the current events in the atmosphere that we're going through right now. But the strategies consist of proactively plan for natural disasters and economic shocks, address aging infrastructure, invest in rural communities, and then intentionally rebuild from COVID. So with the performance measures, again, those can be used to help measure what is or is not working in the region. And I guess is the work that we're creating that is derived from this regional economic development strategy, is it working? Is it successful? Just wanted to point out that not all performance measures are going to be quantitative. That's supposed to say some are non-quantitative, so qualitative. And I did change that on the slide, so I'm not sure why it didn't update. But amendments can also be made throughout. So if we're finding that the economic climate is changing and we want to measure different performance measures, maybe we're excelling in one area, so we want to move on to another, that can happen. And so I did meet yesterday for our final meeting with my steering committee, and they had some suggestions around performance measures. And sorry, going back to the last slide, you can see there's a lengthy list of performance measures. And these are for goal 4, and I have refined them because there is quite a bit of them. And the comment that I received from the steering committee yesterday was that it's kind of overwhelming, and how do we actually measure all of those performance measures? And one particular comment was, how do we ensure that the work that we're doing with the document is meaningful, and how do we measure that? So some comments were made to create some like high-level proxy performance measures, which I thought was a good idea. And so these are the kind of performance measures that could be measured with the interim year progress reports, and taking a high-level approach so we can address what has changed from last year in our progress reports. And I think it's important to call out equities. So what movement are we having in that topic area, and are we growing equitably? And then also measure our outreach and communication with the document. So are we telling stories in the region and sharing case studies of how this planning process has worked? And are we providing the proper updates to boards such as yourself? And then lastly, creating partnerships and having collaborative meetings and measuring that maybe by each goal. And then using those more specific performance measures on the last slide to measure the 5-year updates and really take a deeper dive. And so implementation of the plan. So the process is something that EDA really takes pride in, and they really stress the importance of building partnerships along the way. And so I would have to say that the process is already working. Myself and other staff at TJCOG have used this document development and the process to reach out to partners and expand our networks in the region. So again, I would just say it's already working. And then implementation will also include creating partnerships and maintaining and strengthening the ones that we already have to help promote the goals and the action plans, to increase opportunities for brainstorming and collaboration, and then of course to implement priority areas or projects in the plan. And then, as I briefly mentioned earlier, the interim year progress reports, those are a requirement by EDA, and they help monitor the direction of the plan and the trends. Are we reaching our goals? Are we going where we aspire to be, and things like that. And then hopefully at some point we can have a dashboard on TJCOG's website that has these performance measures and shows the actual data itself. And then I think storytelling is important, highlighting what communities are doing that are reflective of the goals in the plan. And then, like I mentioned earlier in my presentation, leveraging the document to strengthen local grant applications. And then one of the reasons I did decide to do it on ArcGIS or ArcStoryMap is to make it more of a living, breathing plan. It's easier to update that way, so amendments, as I said, can always be made. And then what are the next steps? Continue to attract more partners. And I know I keep saying partners, but that's really one of EDA's priority investment areas, and they really support that collaborative spirit, and again, maintaining and creating and strengthening partnerships in the region. And then at some point throughout the development of this plan, I was hoping to have focus groups by goal area, which I just didn't really think that this was the right time to do that. So hopefully going back and doing focus groups by goals with the appropriate people being involved in that process and that discussion. And then seek out funding opportunities to help implement some of the projects in the plan and align with other local and regional documents. And then again, with the performance measures and the evaluation framework, monitoring and assessing. And I will still meet with the steering committee, most likely biannually, just to provide updates and get their feedback and see where partnerships, who else should be added into the committee, and things like that. Of course, your involvement from the board of delegates. And then I just put get to work. meaning like implement the projects and the priority areas and creating partnerships. So that's, and this photo at the bottom is the cover of the plan on our story map. So again, it's a very interactive tool, a lot of visualization and infographics. So it's not just a hard copy, very easy to navigate. So with that, again, I would love any suggestions, recommendations, comments, questions, anything. I think we have like 10 or 15 minutes. So I have a list of questions. If anyone doesn't have any direct feedback about the document itself, I know in the consent agenda, this document is a part of that. So I just, want to reiterate that it would get approved tonight. And of course, if there were any comment, I would incorporate that into the plan itself before submitting to EDA.
Thank you. Thank you for well done presentation, well done document. I want to let folks know I'm going to be picking up the meeting moving forward. Mayor Raines has had to leave. Please keep Princeton in your prayers. A major fire has broken out. So he is, his attention is elsewhere. And as we learn more, we'll let you know. So I'll open the floor for if there are questions.
Hi, this is Byron McAllister, councilman for the town of Selma. I don't necessarily have a question, but I do really appreciate this presentation, this document. Strength in numbers is something that we've been talking about in Selma recently, as we particularly deal with stormwater issues, water, sewer issues, and we have really begun to realize that working with the communities around us are the only way to attack some of these large issues that we face going forward. So this presentation has really spoken to me, and I really appreciate it.
I will add that that's actually one of the action priority areas is thinking regional when it comes to water and wastewater and the aging infrastructure and stormwater is an action plan as well. Those stormwater in particular did come up a lot in my discussions.
Lindsay, quick question, Sean McGrath here. My question, in great presentation and overall where we're trying to go with this, where you're trying to lead this from a regional perspective and a broader structural perspective. My question is, how do you tie that into the individual level? So when you talk resilience, there's a component, and obviously my military background, there is a huge push on the military side for individual resilience and trying to build that up. How would you see some of these programs tying directly to that, especially when we look at some of the things? We know that transportation is an issue. We know that affordable housing is an issue. You look at programs like Habitat for Humanity, which are directly tied to trying to bring individual resilience with that affordable housing piece. So having people figure out how they can, move into a home, take ownership, and actually be part of that process so they build up individual resilience. So while there's a great component of, regional resilience, I think, a subcomponent of individual resilience that we could tie into this would go a long way.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, I'm picking my brain, and for some reason my mouse is not working right now, but I can't get out of my slideshow. So I was trying to think if I did have any direct action plans that focus on individual resiliency, and there's definitely not that I can think of. There's a lot of action plans that focus around best practices and lessons learned. And so especially under the goal 5, so that communities can hopefully learn from one another in our region and what others are doing that work well. But yeah, as far as individual resiliency, I think that could be a good suggestion and could fit in the economic resiliency or even goal 4 with the creating vibrant places. So yeah, to answer your question, there's nothing directly pertains to that, but I think that's a good suggestion.
I think another benchmark, and maybe you've already mentioned it when you talk about resiliency, is jobs. And I think obviously that's business resiliency. I think only time will tell. The light at the end of the tunnel is, I think a lot of that will depend on what kind of recovery we're looking at, whether it's going to be a V-shaped recovery, whether businesses are going to continue to face challenges, and also in the rural areas, how do we create those jobs, new kinds of jobs. So I think that's job numbers. I would be curious as to look at what the job. I know Michael Walden has spoken to us in the past from NC State, but the forecast now, going as we end the year with so much uncertainty still.
Mm-hmm.
Even if there's a vaccine, it could be another year and a half. But then again, the economy could come back a lot more aggressively than we know of, right? So I guess we just have to wait and see.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention that there is an appendix that is focused just on COVID and COVID recovery itself. And I didn't highlight a ton of metrics, but some of the basic metrics, which like unemployment and some of the industry-based data, tourism data, things like that, but hopefully building upon that over the next year so we can try to set a baseline of where we're heading in a hopefully post-COVID environment. And so we can track where those numbers are going through the years as we get further away from COVID.
Thank you.
Lindsay, I have a question, and that is, have you been reaching out to the individual economic development directors in the region to get their input or to get into their buy-in so that they have a chance to feed into this, as well as to support and provide a greater cohesion?
Yeah,
and maybe bring it down to that individual level.
Yeah, I've worked with some. I haven't worked with all. That would be a lot, but I have touched base with some of the economic development planning directors on staff, and then have worked with some of the economic development corporations, like Alyssa Bird with Chatham County was on my steering committee prior to her resigning. And then I had Johnson County's economic development director, Chris Johnson, on the board. So yes, to some degree I have worked. Hopefully in future years, I would love to have more of a convening that is focused around just that group of practitioners. But yeah, hopefully that will happen at some point.
Lindsay, this is Sig, and great report. And my question is really around the social determinants of health and how that impacts economic resiliency. And I know TJ Coggs involved in so many of those issues around housing and food security and transportation. And if you might just talk a little bit about the social determinants and health of how that fits into your program of impacting the economic resiliency of communities.
I'm trying. I think I have one action plan in particular that calls out like measuring the determinants of health and measuring. But sorry, and I have some. I'm sorry, I don't know how to best answer your question right now. Can you ask it again?
You know, I think when we start talking about economic resiliency, we have to think about the entire package, and it's not just so much a job, but the entire package of health and social determinants, of which housing, food security, transportation, access to healthcare, all those things kind of fit into a comprehensive view of economic resiliency. So, as we start thinking about how we create an economically vibrant community, obviously the social determinants is a component of that. So I just wonder, is some of that a component in terms of how you're thinking about this?
Yeah, I think that they're tied into pretty much all of the goals, like thinking about economic mobility. Clearly that is addressed, and making sure that, we're not just creating jobs, but creating high quality jobs that are accessible to, all different populations regarding age, race, educational level, and having opportunities to expand upon that. And I think that it's definitely folded into the economic resiliency component, especially with the COVID, and ensuring that we're intentionally rebuilding and reimagining and sort of revisiting processes that haven't worked in the past and have left people out, and how we can sustainably and intentionally develop frameworks that benefit and are more equitable in our region. So I guess to answer your question, they're tied within all of the goals to some degree.
That we start thinking about that as we start thinking of these goals, and thinking about not just the job itself, but all the components around what creates prosperity, and economic vitality.
Right. And of course that, it starts with housing and having a place to live. And so those are all addressed in infrastructure. And COVID has obviously highlighted the need for broadband as an essential service. We use it every day for employment, education, medical. So yeah, recognizing the need that for having discussions and economic growth build upon those areas are just as important as the job creation, like you said.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
I have one, Kathleen.
Great. Thank you. Go ahead.
Lindsay, this material is fascinating. And so I'm just going to ask, and this kind of tags on to how you answered SIG. Is there a framework that you can recommend for the creation of non-traditional entrepreneurial enterprises? So, for example, if we're looking to, I'm looking to help establish non-bricks and mortar entrepreneurial endeavors, and because the bricks and mortar right now during COVID is suffering, and there's people who want to move into an entrepreneurial opportunity, but they cannot afford to pay to be in space and lease space. Likewise, there's people who are in spaces who cannot sustain their business in spaces and are taking their businesses mobile. And so if you look at the short range COVID and post-COVID plan of resiliency, there's a wide frontier that is available to get these entrepreneurial enterprises launched. And so I'm in the process of trying to do it very tiny scale, in our little Carborough, but I know across the region, there's folks who want to engage in this, and it would be great if there was a game plan so that when, instead of folks coming to me, for example, they would be able to say, okay, here's how it works, and bring it to other folks. Because I'd like to see that launch, because I know that in a time when we're doing food drives and we're finding ways to shelter people. One of the other things that we need to do is help them find a non-traditional avenue for which to enter not only the business force, but the workforce.
Yeah, so to answer your question, I'm hoping that we can do the same at some point. So I don't have a specific framework in mind right now, but definitely calling out that the ability for, like I said earlier, communities to learn from one another. Like I learned from the Carborough Food Hub and how quickly they pivoted to be able to support the economy and use their local workers for that. So I definitely agree that if we at TJ Cog could have some sort of clearinghouse with that sort of information readily available and being able to connect local governments quickly, that would be great. So not yet, but I like the thought.
Well, you know, as we're doing this, and actually our first event is going to be the Friday after Thanksgiving, which, what does that make that, the 26th, the 27th? Yeah, it'll be on the 27th. You know, we'll see how it goes. I'd love to be able to share with you and when we debrief, because we have 30 vendors coming in that are minority, women, Black and brown businesses that are, you know, they're non-bricks and mortar, and they're going to be coming in and they'll be doing their Black Friday event. So yeah, I'd love to connect with you after that and kind of debrief and see how, you know, what kind of framework can be set up so these kinds of endeavors are not hit and miss, that they really are intentional and deliberative.
Thank you. And with that, I'm just conscious of time. So I'm sure there's other questions, and please go ahead and feed them on to Lindsay, and we can get responses out and shared with folks. But moving ahead with the consent agenda, first, is there anyone who are, oh, I'm sorry, it looks like we have lost quorum. Is that right? Is that correct? So we will.
No, I am back. Kathleen, I'm back on, so you do have quorum.
Oh, yay.
But if you would continue as chair, I would appreciate that.
No worries. I'm glad to. We're keeping you in prayers, and let us know if you need anything. So moving on to the consent agenda, is there anyone who needs to pull any of the items off the agenda? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move, Madam Chair. This is Sig.
Second, this is Jennifer Robinson.
Thank you. Any, with the motion put forth and properly seconded, any further discussion? And hearing none, do we need to do a roll call vote for this?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. If we can do that.
Unmuted. Okay. Will Mullaney?
Will Mullaney votes aye.
Bob Smith?
Aye.
Brett Gant?
Aye.
Mark Wilson? Mark, did we lose you, Mark?
Second, Mark Wilson.
Cassandra Stack?
Aye.
Tommy Bill?
Aye.
Randy Haven O'Donnell?
Aye.
Jennifer Robinson?
Aye.
Ken Marshburn? Kathleen Ferguson,
Aye.
Sean McGrath,
Aye.
Butch Lauder,
Aye.
Aye.
Steve Rao,
Aye.
Aye.
Donald Rains,
Aye.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
thank you, Mark, yes. Rebecca Salmon, Wyhoff Salmon, boy, I'm doing that backwards tonight.
Aye.
Byron McAllister,
Aye.
Sig Hutchinson,
Aye.
Ed Sari,
Aye.
David McGowan. David McGowan, I think you're muted.
Aye.
All right. And from there, Lee, do you have anything to present as your report?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll echo what you said. Mayor Rains, we're keeping you in your prayers, and thank you for jumping back on. Certainly, that's admirable, and hopefully everything will turn out okay in Princeton with the fire. I was going to ask Elena to give a quick update to the board on a really exciting opportunity with our Innovation Academy that we're hosting. This is a free opportunity for members of your jurisdiction to join others in learning. And they've done a really good job with it with several of the jurisdictions. So Elena, do you want to give a quick recap of that, please?
Yeah, happy to. Just very quickly, so this is an initiative of the Strategy and Innovation Network, which includes a lot of
Not a good day.
folks from your local governments. And so they've put together, this is our pilot of this program. It's going to be from January to March, 6 courses across that time period. The idea behind it is basically to make concepts behind innovation accessible to any of our communities. So the courses will be taught by staff from some of our larger jurisdictions that have dedicated innovation staff, which is why we're able to make it free, because they're courses they would be teaching anyways. So we're just sharing resources. The first round, which is January through March, there will only be 20 spots. So it's a kind of a pilot launch, but it is free. We're accepting applications through December 10th. So we would really like as many communities as possible to nominate folks that they think would be great for this program. The courses innovation kind of is a word that could mean a lot of different things. The courses are going to be specific to measuring outcomes, communicating results, testing new ideas. There's a few more that now I'm forgetting. Kind of an overview of creative design, measuring what your user wants, your community members. So there's a bunch of different courses they all kind of fall under innovation, but it's more about testing new ideas and finding things that work for your community members. So as we're all adapting to COVID, we could all use the opportunity to try out some new things. So we'll include some of that, the more information about that in the after action report.
Yeah. Thank you, Elena. This is a really great opportunity where we can leverage resources from several communities and make the opportunity available to every single member government. So it doesn't matter size, where you are. As local governments, you're all trying to communicate your results and your value to your citizens better. So if you've got staff members that you think would be good for this, please nominate them and connect with Elena if you've got any questions. So thank you for the good work. I also just want to really quickly just say thanks to our staff for the great work on the comprehensive economic development strategy that you just approved. That is a huge lift. And staff did a really good job Lindsay in particular, new to the region, just came to the COG, and then COVID hit, and then she had to do a SED strategy, and she did a marvelous job. Alex, who's not on the WebEx today, is the AmeriCorps individual that works with Lindsay, also did a great job as well. And we had a lot of great input from a lot of members. So I want to say thank you. And again, shifting to the regional summit, another effort by lots of members of staff did just a superb job. And as you could see from the list of folks, had a lot of great participation. The other thing I want to mention real quickly is our staff continues to do a great job in the face of COVID. Our offices remain closed to the public, but we've got staff members that are just providing fabulous service to our local government members and to others. We have folks in the office from time to time. We even have one member of the finance staff, Maurice, who's there every day and has been doing a great job. And whether it's our finance staff or our AAA or the folks in all of our other focus areas, they've been doing a great job. Been just sort of pushing over the barriers of COVID and been working really well. So I just wanted to say thank you to that. The one area that we're continuing to work on, and I'll continue to keep the board in the loop as I need to. We're working with the state right now on how our long-term care ombudsman may re-enter long-term care facilities. The state has come out with a re-entry plan, and we're continuing that dialogue with the state. Our ombudsmen are doing extremely great work in some really stressful environments, but they've also been doing a good job in a virtual environment. And so we're trying to balance the safety of our staff with obviously the need to work with the residents of long-term care facilities. So that's an ongoing conversation. And also, this is the last meeting of the year. So I just want to wish everybody a happy holidays. I'm going to assume that this body will probably meet virtually in January just because of the number of individuals on the body. And we'll probably be meeting on a different platform, just as a heads up. We're transitioning from WebEx exclusively over to Teams, Microsoft Teams. So we'll likely be on Teams for our January meeting. There'll still be a call-in option. We'll still be able to live stream. So just as a heads up. Madam Chair, that's all I have.
Well, thank you very much. And we really do appreciate the effort that you and all of TJCOG's staff have done. You're just amazing and continue to be amazing. With that, Mayor Raines, I know that you are dealing with a situation. You're welcome if you would like to share anything with your report. And I will take silence as we will move on. And again, please keep Mayor Raines and the town of Princeton, and we will keep you posted on any needs that they may have. From there, around the region, our question is, what do you want to achieve by the end of the year in your community? I will start very briefly. The Colonial Inn is back open. Yay. So what we want to do is bring people downtown back to the Colonial Inn. Nomad is open. This is exciting for us, bringing back those memories. And I can't see everyone, so I'm going to pass on to Randy. And Randy, I'm going to ask that you pass on to the person that you see, and we'll just proceed that way.
Okay, well, I've done quite a bit of sharing tonight. So the only thing that I will say is that we have lost several well-established businesses in Carrboro, and it's very painful. I don't know how many of you are aware of Townsend Bertrand, Elmo's, and just this last weekend, Balloons and Tunes. These are businesses that have been in Carborough just about as long as I have. They're 30, 40-year-old businesses, and it is it's scary. On the other hand, last night our council approved moving forth with the 203 project, which is the development of a library and synergizing with several other projects and programs such as Skill Development Center, the development of a teen center, and WCOM, amongst others. And I think the only other thing that I'll mention is that we're in the midst of creating our task force for our comprehensive plan. Actually, we've got it established, so we're doing our comprehensive planning for the town as well. And so I will pass this off to Steve.
Thank you very much. I miss seeing everybody and wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. And please be safe. I guess we don't really have a lot that we're going to complete before the end of the year in Morrisville, but we are going to be beginning our Morrisville Carpenter Road project. We got the Campo funding and the LAP funding, and that was on delay for a while. So we're beginning the process of awarding to the construction contract. So we want to get that going, and we're just keeping our fingers crossed that our Wake County Regional Library will open soon. That's not been open, but it's a wonderful addition in Morrisville. And then our Aquatics and Fitness Center was done before the year. So if you want to swim, it's a beautiful pool and a renovated gym right off Morrisville Parkway. So, hopefully we can get all these things done, by January. But we're just going to ride it out the rest of the year, and please be careful.
Jennifer, how about what's happening in Cary? What do you have on your desk?
Hey. Well, it's a quiet period for us, just like everybody else. We are moving forward with capital programs and capital projects. We had floated a bond last year with 68% approval rate. So we are moving forward with those projects, and we're experiencing some better than typical rates, from the responses. So that's very good. We are in the design phase for a major park. And I'd say the biggest thing that I'm hoping we'll do is actually open up some of our park programming before the end of the year, because everything was shut down. Very much unlike Apex, if Brett's still on. I go over to Apex and, things are hopping there. The parks are just lively. And so I'm hoping that Cary will be able to kind of restore some of our outdoor park experiences for people.
Thank you. Sean.
Good evening. Yeah, thanks for asking. Just trying to start my video, but for some reason I can't get it going this evening. So not cooperating with me technology-wise. Yeah, interestingly enough, kind of like Jennifer mentioned, it's exciting times here for some things that are going on municipality-wise with Holly Springs. We're actually offering up or using some of our transportation bonds and park and rec bonds for some greenway connectivity pieces that are going on here regionally as other projects are going. So and some restructuring of debt during this time to actually take some savings of people charging a little lesser finance rate for some of that debt that's out there. So that's something I'm really thankful for our town manager for doing right now. He's doing a great job of that. I did have a quick question for the group, and we just talked about this at our last meeting, and it was with regard to annexation and local municipality annexation. We're trying to evaluate the pros and cons of that road of the legislative means for local annexation or local governments to annex small parcels, if you will, that are amongst others. Again, trying to evaluate the pros and cons, being able to message and talk to talk to community members about the pros and cons of those. You know, the pro of staying part of the county, the con of staying part of the county, the pro of being annexed, and the con of that. Again, not trying to be in the realm of forcing anyone to do that, but looking at those pros and cons. And I don't know if TJ Cog has encountered that before or talked about that as a regional issue, but I think as all of us continue to develop, you find yourself in those scenarios where annexation is an interesting topic to be discussed. Probably crosses the boundaries as well. No pun intended when we start talking about equity.
Right. We will have folks follow up, and we can have that conversation offline. And I'm sure our staff is a wealth of knowledge. Brett.
Yeah, Randy, I was of West Poplar Avenue in Carborough when I was a senior at UNC, and Elmo's was our go-to place, especially when our parents came in town. So that was bad news. Apex, I would say the biggest thing is we've had this program where we blocked off some of the parking in downtown and allowed it for restaurants to use to eat outdoor dining, and with the Small Business Saturday and the Christmas decorations, all the things that were happening for the holidays, we ended it. But I'm hopeful in December, we have a plan for what I assume is going to be a really tough time between January and March, let's say. Maybe we'll close down the street, or I'm not sure what we're going to do, but I hope there's a plan for that. I think I'm down for anything our businesses in downtown during that tough time.
Thank you. Wilma. And you're on mute, Wilma. There you go.
Yeah, okay, I'm unmuted now. In Aberdeen, we have had to cancel some of our Christmas festivities, but we do have one that we're going to go forward on. It's like we're going to have vendors and a little bit of shopping downtown. It's going to be outdoors, so we will have that. But the parade is canceled, and some of the other Christmas get-togethers. But I'm thankful that with this we have we're still going ahead. We're working. We broke ground for our new police station last month, and our sports complex is coming along very well. And both these things were done, since COVID-19, actually in the last, say, 5 months. And I do feel that this will encourage, because sometimes we don't want people to get down. And so we're just trying to keep everybody's spirits up, and that we're going to have a better tomorrow. And even if we don't have festivities, it's still going to be Christmas, and that holiday spirit will be in all of us.
Amen. Mark, Mr. Wilson. Mark, if anything happening in Archer's Lodge? I don't know if.
I think Mark's video, he may be having some lag.
Oh,
because
okay.
he may be having some speed issues is what it's looking like.
Well, we'll move on, Mark. I won't forget you. If you want to hop in, we don't want to overlook you. Byron. Oh, it looks like he's about to say something.
There he is.
There you go, Mark.
Yes, as a community are hoping to return as, can you hear me?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson, I think you just muted. We heard you, and then I think you muted. So you.
On my end, it looks like, there we go.
Let's see. Let me see if I can do it this way.
Looks like it keeps muting and unmuting.
Yeah.
Looks like there's a
Just going
connection
in and out.
issue.
Yeah. All right.
Here we go.
All right, let's try this one more time. People in Archer Lodge are hoping to return to the new normal, whatever that will be, Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
Happy
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving to everybody.
Thank you. Byron.
Yeah, in the town of Selma, at the end of the year, we're going to finish up the work we started from the funds we've gotten through the Golden Leaf Grant to address some of our sewer I&I issues. Also, good news, between March and now, 4 new businesses have opened up in Selma. We've had several folks purchase property throughout downtown Selma and the surrounding area, and we've been surprised to see the growth during these strange times. So we're hopeful that when we do get back to our new normal, we'll have a surprising amount of activity going forward. So happy Thanksgiving and happy holidays to you. I hope everybody has a great close to the year.
Thank you. And I see we have a call on the phone. I can't tell who, but I don't want to overlook.
I think that might be Cassandra.
Okay, Cassandra. Or maybe not. Caller, the person who's calling in, if you can hear, you are on mute, but we don't want to miss what's happening in your area. There we go.
Okay, there we go. Okay, one of the things that we had to do this year, which was hard, but we met with the chamber, we had to cancel Mule Days, and that has never happened in history in the town of Benson. So that was one of the things that we had to cancel. We didn't exactly cancel Christmas on Main this year. We did change some things. So that's still going to go on. We're dealing with our water and sewer issues here in Benson. We've had 3 new businesses this year. They're actually 3 African-American businesses open, which has been a success. We're doing a ribbon cutting tomorrow for one. And what else do we have going on? Oh, yes, in the Benson Middle School, we finally had the opportunity to demolish that. So that's going to be part of the PKVS part that they're actually going to upgrade for the future. So we do have some things going on in Benson right now. But one of our biggest things is the water and sewer, just getting that back together. We are also using a grant through the Greenleaf Foundation.
All right. Well, thank you. A lot is still going on in our region, and it's heartening to hear that we are having some areas where new businesses are open. That's good news. And with that, is there any other business that folks would have to bring forward?
Kathleen, hey, I had check raise. It's not very serious, but I told this body maybe a year ago that Apex had allowed potbelly pigs as pets, and the update to that, and Lee, if you're interested in this, we now allow dwarf goats as pets. So if you look them up on Google, they're adorable. Just wanted to share with you, everybody.
Okay, so are they the fainting goats?
No, they're smaller than that and cuter than those. Those are funnier, but no, it's smaller and cuter.
Cool. Thank you. All right. Anything else? Then with that, thank you, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Forgive me if I'm forgetting your faith and celebration. Wishing all health and happiness, and we'll see you in the new year. Thank you so much.
Yeah, happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy
We're all
holidays.
We're all wishing for no more WebEx meetings.
Amen. and please keep Mayor Raines in Princeton in your prayers.
Yes.
And thank you, Lee, Alana, John, I think you and Renee, I can't get everybody, but we're so grateful again for all that you do. So thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Y'all take care.
All right. Bye-bye.